Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon. I'm here with another Better Health webinar as part of our Healthcare and Innovation series. And I am absolutely thrilled to have Dr. Simon Sontag, the co-founder and CEO of Autonomy, here today. A really exciting VR company using digital twin technology in healthcare and particularly in clinical trials, and how that interfaces with some of the things that are really moving and shaking in the healthcare space is going to be the focus of part of this conversation, as well as some of the amazing things that he's done as an entrepreneur and as a leader, as a voice in the community. I first, as with every webinar, I really want to thank everyone for their participation. Um, really, the support that you have given for the webinar series has been outstanding. The questions, the really dynamic quality of people's comments. We've been getting people signing in from all over the world. And what's really fantastic also is that not only live, but also on the recorded version, people are really engaging and continuing conversations. So I want to encourage everyone to please let us know where you're logging in from. That's also quite nice to know in terms of geography. And if you have any comments or thoughts during the webinar, please feel free to share them. If we don't get them answered today, we will over the next week. And I know that Simon is passionate about what he's doing. He's been doing this for a number of years. And I'm going to turn it over to him right now, and let him tell you a little bit about himself, his motivation, his vision, why he started this incredible company. And then at the end, we'll get a crystal ball out and we'll look into it and see where this is going to take things in the next 3 to 5 years. So, Simon, thank you so much for being here today. I know that we last saw each other in California at a terrific LSI meeting.
Right.
The things that you're doing are really cutting edge. But most importantly, I think both agree that innovation for innovation's sake is not really the name of the game, just like data for data's sake is not the name of the game. The name of the game is impacting people and patients and helping people improve outcomes and helping decision makers improve treatment algorithms. All of this is about creating more effective healthcare systems, more cost effective healthcare systems, bringing drugs, devices to market sooner. And really, I think part of it is also personalizing healthcare, really understanding the bespoke nature of treating a human being. And I will turn it over to you to talk to us about, how you got into this space, a little bit about your entrepreneurial vision, because I think that's important as a leader to be able to talk to people who are watching and to let them know, what an incredible leader you are.
So first of all, Martin, thanks a lot for the invitation to this webinar, and thanks also from my side to all the people attending today and listening to us, and hearing also a bit about what we're doing at Autonomy. And it's a great pleasure because it's, of course, when you build up something over all these years, you're also very proud, of course, what you have created there. And so I'm very happy to show you here also later on a bit more what we are doing. My passion for entrepreneurship really has come over the years. So my background is very technical. So I started studying mathematics, applied mathematics. During the studies, I've seen it's a bit dry to look only at numbers. So during the studies, I already changed a bit more to medical engineering and medical image processing. This is really what then took my passion. So to see that what we can do, they're developing these complex algorithms and so on, that it really can have an impact. And after my studies, I wanted to continue on this and started my PhD then back in the days in cardiovascular engineering. So was working a lot using already computational models during this time and image processing tools for research purposes on medical devices in the cardiovascular space. So majorly in artificial heart valves, but also assist devices. And then after my PhD, I continued working at a medical device service provider. This was a spin-off out of the university. And so a very small company. We started with only a handful of people, and I was the chief operating officer, and helped this company over the next 6-7 years to grow to around 25 people. We bootstrapped the company, so this was without investors. And yeah, with a service company doing this, you learn the hard way to survive for the next months, from the months to months. But of course, I learned there a lot about all concept is everything that is relating to building a company, so hiring the right people, but also the finance, of course, the revenue, sales, and in this regard. So this is then that really sparked my entrepreneurial passion and also having the motivation to found my own company later on. And yeah, during this time, we were continuing working, also using computational methods, but also using animal testing and other benchtop testing for medical device companies. We had around 50, 60 projects during this time. So there, I also seen a lot of medical device companies trying to bring their devices on the market and also struggling with conventional methods. So yeah, that is limited. So with conventional methods of benchtop testing and animal testing in this process. And I also got more and more involved into the regulatory part of medical devices by becoming part of an ISO committee of transcatheter heart valves. And there, in a meeting with FDA, but also the major players in the medical device industry, I've seen the huge potential of using this kind of technology, of simulation technology and virtual approaches, not just for R&D purpose, but really as a evidence for the approval of these devices. And as this is coming in other industries and have been established, like automobile industry and aerospace, when you have flown the last time somewhere, that the airplane you were on was developed using computational modeling and simulations. So it's other industries, it's already in there. In the medical domain, it took a bit longer because, of course, to simulate a human body or a digital representative of this, or a digital patient twin, it's very complex. So this is, of course, something that takes a while on the regulatory side and on the technology side. But after these years working in this field, I've seen this is the right time to get into this market. This was the origin of Autonomy that I co-founded then in 2019 together with Wen Yang Chu, who's coming from the industry. So he was working for Philips for many years in data science, software development. So he had all the skills and background of creating software and tools that we want to enter this domain. And yeah, a lot has happened since then, since 2019. We're now a team of around 20 people, working passionately on the technology, on the creating more and more traction. So we have gone public last year with our software and have very good traction in the first years and since the release, with a multitude of users in this, where we have already shown that our tool can really cost the time to market, reduce also the time to market, but also reduce the risk to fail during the whole process. And this is something that is very, very relevant of what we are doing in this.
So interesting, so much to unpack there. I'm trying to find the proper way to start. I would say, first of all, thank you for sharing that personal background about how you progressed to where you are now. And I know, you know, just from speaking with you that people are so important to you. Team building is so important to you. Collaboration is so important to you. Before we get into some of the technology aspects, can you tell me a little bit about that piece of it? That you know, collaboration with people who are local or international or companies that you think are going to be important players for Autonomy in the next few years?
Yeah, so first of all, partners is super important. And I would also say in this entrepreneurial journey, networking and getting in contact with people, companies, with all kinds of entities, it's one of the most important steps in the process. It's, for example, our first employee, Gloria, we got connected with her throughout my master thesis supervisor it was over 10, 15 years ago, but I still had a good connection with him. And he then made the introduction to her, and she's still, after now almost 4 years with us and has a very, very important role in the company. So it shows that keeping these connections, keeping these relationships, that's very, very important. And we have built up over the years a big network of collaborators, of partners that we work on very closely. So of course, very important are the shareholders of the company. So we have a multitude of investors in the company, very international, from Europe, but also from the US. We just recently raised our next fundraising round, where then one of the partners that joined is Accenture. So this multi-international consulting company, which is a great partner for us now to expand our business, expand our reach out and visibility, also to go from Europe, from Germany, where we are headquartered, to the US and spread the connection over there. Throughout the additional partners that we have is on the side of CROs. So we are connected, for example, to it's a smaller CRO from Berlin, Sirent, that we work on very closely. And the great thing there is that they also share the passion of growing, of expanding in this domain. And this is what is very relevant when doing this.
That's fantastic. I mean, part of the structure that I tried to put together as kind of the architect of the webinar series is to bring companies into an ecosystem. So, your company, prior companies such as Flatiron and Komodo, clearly have, potential collaboration and work to do together. The intersection of some of the things that you're doing in terms of gathering the data needs to be filtered, analyzed, and insights need to be gained from that data. And that's where companies like Flatiron and Komodo are just absolutely pivotal. And so it's very exciting to talk to you, about the work you're doing. It's part of this, hub and spoke picture that I see for the next decade at least. I personally believe, and the investment thesis behind Endeavor and the Venture Studio is that we are in the equivalent phase of the early .com era within the digital health space. That lasted approximately 12 to 14 years. And, it's the typical boom and bust cycle where first there's disbelievers. Second, there's a valuation bump, then there's a higher one, then the valuation gets crazy, and then exorbitant and irrational and exuberant, and then M&A comes in and everything goes to hell. So I think we're in the very beginning phases of this. And so, talking to you now, I expect over the next several years to, see, your company and the things that you're doing personally integrate into Microsoft and to Apple and to Google and, to all the things that big tech is looking to bring their core competencies to. And in prior conversations, with organizations like Komodo and with Flatiron, they are eager to work with entrepreneur CEOs like yourself who have this desire to collaborate, desire to network, and find, real world data to analyze. One of the questions here, which is coming from one of the attendees, is, how much of the work, and I will add another layer to the question, on the regulatory side is going to be needed in real world data alongside virtual. And I will stop talking after I say one more thing, which is because it's such an exciting space. So we all know about in silico bringing a drug to market in 30 months using artificial intelligence. And I know that you're not in the therapeutic space, but that's certainly a strong case study for what the virtual world can do in terms of speeding things to market. So I just wanted you to comment a little bit on the regulatory side because the FDA has opened that door on the therapeutic side. Can you speak to a little bit about how the FDA and other government organizations and European, EMEA or whatever else, is pertinent to your focus, how they look at the regulatory door?
Yeah, this is a very important point because it's everything that you're doing is it's not working when the regulatories are not supporting this because in the end, it has to be accepted there. And what we are working there on is really that this digital evidence or evidence coming from computer frameworks gets accepted as preclinical and in the end eventually also clinical data. And the FDA actually is supporting this since a couple of years and are pushing a lot forward in their highest priorities of their roadmap. I think out of 5 priority columns, 4 are related to this topic also of computer simulations in this. So it means also that FDA is taking this very seriously to push this forward. And what was very important is that they've created a lot of guidance and documents that support this and support the developers of tools like VR, but also the sponsors, the medical device companies, to know what is going on and to create these evidence in a way that is also then reviewed properly by the FDA. So it means the first question that arises here is what I'm simulating, is it accurate enough, representing the real world, right? Because this is also what the FDA asked themselves. So credibility. Credibility is
Yes.
something that is very, very important because you can simulate, of course, everything. You can create nice pictures, nice numbers, but is this correct? Is this correctly done? So the FDA has worked together here closely with ASME to create a document. It's called Wien V40 about verification and validation of computational models for assessment of medical devices, safety and performance. And it's a risk-based process that I've created here with a very stepwise concept of how you test the validity of your outcome of simulations. So this was a very, very important step in this process, and that helps. There's, in addition, what the FDA, but also with the community is working on is a so-called good simulation practice. So that will also come into practice then next to the GLP and GMP that also already changed the industry tremendously in the last decades. So this is something that is very, very important there. The FDA actually is predicting that in the next years, over 40% of the regulatory evidence will come from such in silico technology and push away the benchtop testing, animal testing, and human testing more and more. And where I see this is that it's not something that is just substituting then clinical trials or something, but it creates another way of developing devices. Because in the past, you develop a device and then after many years, you then test the device in the human being. And when you fail here, this means, of course, that you have to change the design. It means, of course, it means adverse events on patients. And then the iteration loop here goes a lot back to the loop of your product development. And what we want to do is to combine the early development of devices already with evidence, with data, with computer simulations to de-risk the whole process. And also something that is called like predictive development or predictive analytics. So to predict early on if your device would fail later on in clinical practice. And we are, of course, not there yet that everything can be predicted in all the concepts, but I see that, and this is our mission with autonomy, that over the years we can get there to predict more and more and really reduce here the risk for the patient in the end. And this is, of course, a big benefit for the developer themselves as well.
Just you know, by leaps and bounds, just a game changer on so many levels. And as part of this process, um, because things are moving, so fast, collaboration, as we talked about earlier, with med tech companies, potentially down the road, even biopharma companies, although that's not your focus right now. I know we've had some preliminary conversations about that space, but I think the key point here is um, the tailwinds. Government has a tremendous impact on industry specific growth. And so I wear a few different hats. One is I do wear a white coat. I am a physician. I am also a former FDA attorney, but I am an investor. And I want the investment to be both um, an investment that has social impact, because healthcare obviously is so important to everybody, especially underscored after this horrible pandemic. But also the notion that we're in a secular bull market in healthcare, and the bull market for me is marked by many of the things that we just talked about, including the incredible amount of liquidity. So you just talked about the capital raise. Congratulations on that. Um, the idea, in part, in bringing this point up, is to excite entrepreneurs who are watching, who may be discouraged because of economic problems in other areas. And I just want to underscore and maybe get your take on this as someone who's in the digital health space, because I want to encourage more and more entrepreneurs to look at healthcare. And I will just say, and this is a little bit of a plug for the Angel Capital Association, who's asked me to kind of co-participate in the creation of a new healthcare series of tracks in their upcoming summit, and perhaps to roll that out more within the large Angel Capital Association community, which is north of 10,000 members and north of 250 organizations. So the point, which is the focus of a lot of these tracks, um, is to be able to understand how to pick the winners and losers, and how to understand this shift from selling a device such as hip replacement or a stent or something that is tangible, not digital. It's a product. You look at cost of goods sold, you look at sales and distribution, but now we're looking at something totally different. We're looking at data. And so I wanted you to speak to two areas. I know this is kind of a little bit of a long-winded monologue, but it's kind of a complicated but important subject for investors, which is, how do you as an entrepreneur see the opportunities for gathering data and selling data? That is because that revenue stream goes into the valuation and the decision making, of many of the investors. And then the second part is, how do you see investor interest? Like, where is it coming from? Is it coming from angels, family funds, VCs, corporate, venture community? So I'll leave it at that. If you can amplify on some of those things.
Yeah, so on the one hand, data, it's very important. Of course, everybody has heard recently about ChatGPT and all these generative aspects, but it's not working when you don't have the proper data. And in the medical domain, of course, it's very different, because data is a lot more secured than you have access to the internet. You cannot find data in the internet about patient backgrounds in this, what is good. So this is, of course, very important, but it makes it more difficult, of course, for AI and data scientists to work on that. So data there is even more valuable in a way to create technology that can help. So on the one hand, the infrastructure has to be established. There's still a lot of unknowns in the medical domain about data security, about data connections, about how to acquire data in this field. So in Europe, the European Commission, they have done some work on this, but still limited, let's say. So this is something that is very relevant, of course, when entering a new area. And this is, of course, something that investors see potential in there. They see the chance, as this is an industry that's coming up. But of course, always also fear a bit the risk of this industry, as it's very, very regulated and is very governed by government, but also other stakeholders in this. So I would say in the medical domain, there are a lot of stakeholders involved, and this always makes uncertainty or brings uncertainty in this, but of course also a chance. So when there are companies that have shown a good way and pipeline of acquiring data, of monitoring acquisition of data in a good way, and having the impact on patients, on clinicians, on hospitals, and so on, with a proper monetization way, also business model, I think there's a huge potential for this, also concerning investors. But I think investors in this domain also look at this, especially investors who know this industry. So they will for sure also ask these questions of how you acquire data, how you monetize data, what's your business model out of this, how can you scale this, because this is, of course, a very important aspect also in this industry, how you then also become a big company in the end with that. So I think there's a huge interest by investors in this field, but what I can also recommend the all startups who are listening, who maybe want to raise money, is also to get the right investors who know and understand what you're doing. Because when you go to an investor who is only invested in e-commerce, for example, they will not understand the challenges of that are there in the medical domain of regulations and different stakeholders in this, and that it's also maybe taking a bit longer in this industry to monetize aspects or to go through regulatory aspects in this. So we are very happy with our investor group because they really good understand what we are doing. We have a very diverse investor group. So we have their venture capital companies. We have also a group of business angels, the Springboard Health Angels, who are incredible group of angels with a very good background from all different industries and can support us with their background, but also really understand what we are doing. And we have also corporate, like I said, Accenture. We have a family office in there. So a very diverse background of investors in this. But it also brings a lot of different good mindsets in this. You always have to be careful to not bring too many opinions in such a group. That can also be a burden for the founders in this if it's too much input in that. But on the other hand, you can also really take the chance out of this and create a lot of value from these connections and from these partners in this. But very important is to create and include the right partners in this. And along our journey of different fundraising rounds, we also said no to certain investors that we thought it's not a good fit to the group of investors, to the shareholders, to us, or that maybe not create a good value to our company. So this is also something that's very important. And one point, I know it's hard to raise money, and you're always happy to get money, but if you really feel bad about a connection, then rather say no than taking the money.
The point that you brought up is just again underscoring your leadership and understanding. So recently, I was fortunate enough that Fast Company published an article that I co-wrote about how CEO entrepreneurs really need to understand and to think more like investors. Like, what do they look for? And so the things you're talking about really resonated. I just put that up there for people to take a look at. Here's the actual kind of link. If people want to take a look at that article, I think will amplify the things that you're talking about, which is finding that right fit means understanding who's on the other side of the table. And so again, this underscores the thesis that I strongly believe in, that that there is a change across the board in healthcare startups. So that change is about ethos and about value sets and about leadership, and it is about understanding that your innovation will not just stand by itself and sell itself. You have to have collaboration partners, and you have to send the message, articulate the message to investors, that just as you said, you understand risk. You understand, the risk, and also how other organizations, whether it's government or private sector, how they intersect with what your goals are to scale. And very often, young CEO entrepreneurs are only focused on raising the next $1 million, which of course at some point can become a kind of a crisis situation. To avoid the crisis situation is to understand how to approach the investor, and you clearly have hit the nail on the head, so to speak, as you've just raised your last round in an extraordinarily difficult time. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or if you wanted to flip over. I know you have a video, you have some slides.
Yeah, I just want to add what you just said, because I think this is very important, that you should understand how investors think. And also when you go into a negotiation with investors, you should think, yeah, if I would be on the other table, how would I do this? It helps a lot in these conversations. So this is something that I always found very important, and because both sides need to work together and need to fit together. And also when you see this, your startup from the other side, maybe some startups are not, we see ready, or also maybe not VCs are the best way for these startups. So this is also something founders should think about.
That's such a great point. There are different, kind of cultures within these different investor communities with different expectations, different language, different needs, whether it's angels, family funds, or VC or corporate. So really, fantastic point. Um, just I think the future is so bright for you and your company, and it'll be absolutely fantastic to see how Accenture, who I think very very highly of. I mean, the work that they're doing in healthcare, particularly healthcare services and life sciences, is extraordinary. The people that are running the show in those two subsectors within healthcare in general are super smart, and they are clearly plugged into what client pain points are, and they clearly are looking to solve problems for medtech and biopharma and biotech and healthcare services. So this is a tremendous opportunity to really kind of shout out to people in the audience a little bit about Simon and his company. And I don't want to speak for Simon, but I know that he's very open to people who have ideas about collaboration or entrepreneurs. So I just want to throw that out there, or any comments or thoughts that you have on that, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody who's interested, speaking to me to think about how we could collaborate, and collaboration is of course on many different ways and levels that could happen. So very happy to do so. We're always looking for new partners, for new talents, for new connections. So that's great.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's dialed in. We have Martin from Norway. We have Chad from Dallas, Nikhil from Canada, Malik from my home state, New York. And really appreciate everybody, calling in, dialing in, and making comments. Very thoughtful comments about the intersection of real world data and virtual data, we're just at the very preface of the book. Let me know if you want to upload any of the information here, the video or the slides.
Yeah, we can show the video because
Okay.
yeah, we just recently finished this video. So Petra from our team,
I will
and
upload that.
we are very proud, of course, to show that. So this summarizes a bit of what we're doing. So where we connect the patient data, creating then three-dimensional representatives, but also having connections of hemodynamics, data about this. Statistics is something that is very important for us to have. We call this patient population analysis. Here you can see then also the clustering between male and female that shows also very important the diversity of patients, because the still groups are underrepresented in clinical trials. So this is something we want to get rid. We then have statistical shape models that you have just seen, where you can also create like questions like how does the average female patient with a certain disease look like? And then here you can see the setup of a simulation case. So this is of a heart valve. So this is an ISO benchtop test usually that is performed. That can here be done virtual, so in a tube. And we can include the fluid structure interaction. So really the interaction between the blood flow and the leaflets to investigate like hemodynamic conditions of hemolysis, thrombus formation, but also like electrophysics. Like here, this is done to really simulate the beating heart under conditions, healthy condition, disease condition, for pacemaker, for example, implantation. And then all this can be connected to virtual reality if you want to investigate then the patients three-dimensionally. This is also in a collaborative environment. So there could be an engineer meeting from Australia, meeting together with a clinician from the US. They work together in this virtual environment using, one can use virtuality, the other can use the desktop PC, and investigate a patient then three-dimensional and understand what is the implantation or the indication of the implantation on the specific patient, but also in a multitude of patients, to maybe change the device design, but also to educate patient and clinicians in their intervention in this. And there we have also one customer, they're using this for pediatric patients, So where this can also be used for children before implantation to see if this device is properly for the specific patient, and they're very small, of course, and very fragile, and this is helping them in making the right decisions in the end for the patient. And it's great to see. So I think as a founder, I have to say, of course, you have all the this business impact that is there that you need on the market, on the size, the commercial traction in this. But when you develop something that has really an impact on patients in the end, this is something that is really fulfilling. And what we are developing, what I really like there is that our technology can have an impact on a multitude of medical device developers. And these medical device developers then in the end have an impact on the patients. So what we are developing can have a huge impact in the end, because we are helping, in the end, I hope, then hundreds of medical device developers, and each of them are helping hundreds of patients. So this is great to see, and great feeling there as a founder to have this impact in the end.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I know you also have a slide deck. Did you want to put those up?
I think not. I think most of this already told here, so
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Great. Well, then let's shift a little bit to, the future. Right now we're at this incredible intersection where technology is kind of finding a footing. Um, Clearly, government, as you said, is playing an important role in providing tailwinds, and corporations or consulting firms like Accenture are, which is a huge firm. I think they have like 700,000 employees in the world. So, um, there clearly is momentum that's building. Part of the thesis, again, in Endeavor is finding liquidity. $100 billion has been put into healthcare by big tech companies over the past several years. Google Ventures is more than 55% healthcare focused. They have made 250 plus investments over the past year just in healthcare. Um, where do you see all of this going? Do you see big tech? You mentioned earlier, for example, the FDA sees 40% of, clinical trial information coming from virtual. Where do you see big tech and the liquidity that's coming from big tech, driving the overall healthcare industry over the next several years?
Yeah, so what I see, and also where our long-term vision is going, so this is something that is maybe not for the next 2-3 years, is that the industry is changing from sick care to predictive care. So sick care, it means you have a symptom, you have like coughing or something, you go to the clinician, and then they look for look for answers to your symptoms, and then treat you either with drugs or with an implant or something, with a surgery to make you better. But this is then kind of after you have been sick. And predictive care would mean that already you now know that in 2-3 years something is happening, and then you change your lifestyle, you change your doing or already do like treatment options early in an early stage, like with drugs or with interventions in this to get rid or to not even get there that you're sick in the end. And this is where the whole industry will go within the next decades in this. And there's a lot that is needing to be done. On the one hand, of course, to have good data streams. And because you need, when you really want to have a predictive environment, you need to know what is happening to you. And where I see us maybe in this is that what you have just seen with this digital patient twin that is having the heart valve and everything in there. Our long-term vision in there is to really have a digital avatar of everyone. So this is then that view of myself, you would have really a digital twin of yourself with all information going into this. But you really need all information, because when you have a headache or with a dental disease, this could also have an impact on your heart somehow, because everything is connected in the body, of course. So this is something that is not yet there, because the data infrastructure is not that there to have all data of yourself together in this. And then also to somehow have the data together of this. So it is of the patients to make this predictive analytics. So this is an endeavor that is really of a multitude. So we ourselves will never be able to get there. one company, one major player, one big uh, big tech might also not be able to get there. So this is really something where a lot of players will need to work together, from industry, from regulators, from government, to get there over the next years and decades to really get to a predictive environment, predictive analytics of having this and having achieved there. And a lot of money have to be invested in this. So also investors are a key player in this industry because they have to believe in something that might happen in 10 years, that might change there. So you have to have strong believers with deep pockets also in this to go and get there. So a lot has to be done in this field, but I think we can play a small role or maybe a bigger role in this road there. And I think the big players, of course, see a huge multi-billion-dollar industry in this field of predictive environment.
So interesting. Do you see VR being embedded into electronic healthcare records from Epic and Nuance as down the road a few years, just being the normal course? A physician or healthcare provider will go into the EHR system and do some simulations before seeing the patient.
Yeah, I think so. Virtual reality is something that we add on top to our product. So it's something that our software is not purely VR based. So you can majorly use your desktop, but you can use virtual reality if you want to use it and when you see the benefits of using it. So I see that VR can have an impact there and can be substantial in this. But I rather see that as digital and virtual environment, how you want to visualize it. And I think the power needs to be in the user. And if they want to use virtuality in this to better plan their surgery, or if they want to use a tablet or smartphone, it should be up into them how they want to do this and what's in the end helping the best way to do this. So I don't see yet that this VR is fully implemented into the operating room, for example, or
Right.
AR rather. So it has to be accepted, and the people need to like it and need to get used to it. So
Yeah.
this might take a while. They might need to see the benefits of it, but also technology needs to be ready to be good enough to really give this benefit in the end to the clinicians in this. But I see that there is definitely opportunities and benefits in this market, in this virtual reality and augmented reality as well, but rather in the virtual domain.
So interesting. I mean, there's so many ways to take this. One of the questions is about patient empowerment. There's a whole group of patients who are disenfranchised historically. Looking at virtual reality to be able to empower them seems like an obvious fit for me. What is the ability for patients to interact in the, um, let's say, data exchange or data centric way with what you're doing? Do they have the ability to kind of complement the software development in some fashion?
Yeah, so this is something with a partner we are working on to have also yeah, to integrate this more in a consensus, patient consensus system. So where patients have to consent on their, of course, the treatment and everything that they're doing, and they could also consent there in providing the data then for research purposes, because of course it's something that is two-bladed, of course, in this industry, because when you have the chance to provide all your data to a big pharma company, for example, would you do this? So on the one hand, you think, okay, this pharma company makes money out of this, of your data, so you would be very restrictive in this. But the other way, when you think about when you provide this data, there might be better products in the end developed that could help maybe you in the future or others in this. So this is something that patients need to be empowered and needs to be also educated in this. What happens with the data? Because when you are open to provide the data there, it cannot just be spread and then be everywhere, and then people make money out of this, and you don't know what's happening in this. So proper, transparent ways of this is very important, but also that people understand what happens really there with your data and what's happening then afterwards with this.
Yeah, no, such great points. I mean, I want to have you back for sure as quickly as possible because I know that you're moving, at an accelerated pace. There's so many things that are happening. One of the areas I'd love to explore with you, if and when you come back, is the whole idea of personalizing this virtual reality experience, particularly inputting, let's say, social determinants of health, which is an area that is really, getting more and more attention, because it does impact outcomes. And clearly there is a strong focus on, the differences within different disenfranchised communities, how they respond, particularly on the therapeutic side, to the effectiveness or the side effects that therapeutics have, and being able to understand how to pull that data, I think, speaks to one of the important issues about closing the diversity gap, which is a little bit of a shift from the core conversation. But I do think that, one of the things that's embedded in technology and innovation is to find different use cases. And so one of the use cases that I see is empowering patients. The ability for them to disclose personal information in an interview face to face with a healthcare provider, and I could speak from personal experience, is limited. It's limited in time. It's limited in terms of tension. It's limited in terms of, cultural barriers, other, um, kind of, specific diversity issues, whether it's ethnic issues, racial issues, cultural issues, religious issues, gender, etc. And having the ability to use a tool like this to be able to openly talk about things that you would find difficult talking with another person seems to me an obvious fit. And I can tell you on the biopharma side, the interest is
Yeah, absolutely. So diversity, it's a very, very important part in this. And then what is really a bit of an issue, and when you look at clinical trials, is that there's a missing diversity in patient recruitment. It's of course difficult, but also something that the FDA is pushing forward a lot. They've just also quite recently published another request for more diversity in this and equity in clinical trials, because
Mhm.
there's a huge gap, like as you said, on gender, females underrepresented, also ethnic groups, children, rare diseases, and this. So this is really something that can prevent people from having either the proper access or possibility to be properly treated. And this is something that should not be the case. And I think here virtual methods can help a lot, and silicon medicine can help a lot to close this gap of diversity. Because of course, recruiting the patients, it's difficult. It's also very difficult sometimes to do this properly. And when you have the data ready and have a big data set that is very diverse and can be used for this, this is a big benefit in closing this in the end.
Well, Simon, it's been an absolutely fascinating 45 minutes. I want to thank you, immensely for your time, your thought provoking comments. I want to thank all of the audience, who's participated here. We've got some great comments, from very cool to I want to know more to extremely interesting. So, I think the message is please come back. Tell us more about how the company is doing, how we are impacting people's lives. And it's just an absolute delight to hear your vision. And I am certain that your company, is going to do amazing things, for the next, many years, with a lot of, great partners, some of whom you mentioned here today.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Of course, happy to come back and tell more about our stages.
Fantastic. Stay tuned for just a minute, Simon. I'm going to, disconnect from everybody here. Thank you, everyone, again for tuning in to another Better Health webinar series. Please, um, I will be traveling next week. So, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to skip a week unless I can have a doppelganger, sit in, for me, which may be possible. I mean, with, Simon is here, I'm sure we could figure something virtual out. That would be kind of cool. But if not, we'll see you the following week when we have another incredible company, a young early startup run by an incredible CEO, a woman who is going to tell you about some incredible things that she's doing. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Simon, stay tuned. I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone now. Bye bye.